time today in the center of Beijing when a man walked to the middle of the Avenue of Eternal Peace.
Well, all right. Welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass podcast with Matan and Chuck. So today I got Matan, who is the creator of Matan's Life Map. And basically, what it is kind of I guess I'll kind of let you describe it. What exactly is Matan's Life Map?
Sure. So Matan's Life Map is a digital organizer with the purpose of helping people create a map or leave some breadcrumbs for those, in case something happens to them. So we created what you can use on your phone, tablet, computer, 12 questions. You should be able to answer them in under 45 minutes and then share them with your loved ones, whoever you trust. In case something happens to you, they have a place to start knowing where things are. And the nice thing is you can update it, and it automatically shares it with whoever you chose. And then if you want to remove someone, you can easily do that as well. So we wanted to streamline how to get important information to people you care about in case something were to happen.
Nice. Well, that's one of the things. So, like as preppers, right? People who plan and prepare for things. To me, dealing with, I guess, end of life is something that's going to happen. You can prepare for economic collapse or, a tsunami or, any of these things, right? But this is something that will happen no matter what. And maybe you won't see the consequences in your lifetime of you passing, but you'll
Right.
definitely see people around you who you care about or, who you're dealing with every day. And that is something that is going to happen. And yeah, so like what inspired
Yeah.
you, I
And
guess,
I
to do
think
it?
as you say that, it's funny to me because, when we talk about preparation for stuff, and you brought up economic collapses, right? We all talk about where's your money, right? Do you have stuff that's liquid enough if the market crashes? Do you have stuff in the market to get, to avoid, to offset inflation? We know there's going to be cyclicality in the market, and we
Mhm.
plan for all those things, but we don't really plan for what if something happened to us, right?
Right.
And as you said, for us, it's kind of tricky because it's not something we would benefit from personally. But think about, if you're going through all this effort for your family to protect them, to prepare for different scenarios, this could be one of those like final acts of I really care, and here it is.
Yeah.
Um, and again, it's as humans, we don't like to think about that because accepting our own mortality or
Right.
the risk of something happening to us isn't fun to talk about, but it will happen, right? We all get hurt. We all have a time clock. And to me, this could be one of those like final acts of love and care that, yes, I care about financials. I care about you finding stuff. And I took the 45 minutes to make sure that you don't have to dig through my sock drawer to find my spare keys.
Right. Right. Now I mean, I know from my own experience, my mother-in-law recently passed, and she was definitely somebody who didn't want to confront or deal with, those ideas, that was too stressful or whatever to think of your passing. And honestly, I think for a lot of people it comes sooner than expected. It's very few people that are like, "Oh, well, now, things are starting to get to that point." And also if you're like, well, I'll deal with that when I get sick and I'm on my deathbed. Well, that's not really the time you want to be dealing with that. You have other things going on. And that's like doing a will. People don't want to deal with that because they're like, well, that's in the future. I'm
Right.
still 40 or whatever, and it's not a concern. But it's going to happen, and you can put the time in now and put the time in, later. And I know with the case with my mother-in-law, it was, nothing was done or prepared. And so finding, life insurance or pensions or, what credit cards even have to be paid off or different things like that, it becomes a real struggle. And like you said, 45 minutes versus hours and hours, of,
Exactly.
and days, of trying to find stuff. And I mean, I know for us, it was ongoing for months, trying to, write people and get things sorted out to figure out what's really going on. But go on.
Yeah, and right, it's every one of us, we have our own systems, right? So, for example, if you asked me where something is, I can tell you, right? For me in my own home, I can tell you where my list of things is. I can tell you where a password is. I can tell you all those things. But
Mhm.
if something happens to me, I can't do that anymore.
Right.
Now, when you will try and find it, you'll probably find pictures. You'll find memorabilia that you didn't want to go through. That's not where you're not trying to go down memory lane. You're trying to get, the internet password so you can figure out how to shut things off. And that's the part where we don't think about. I talked to a lot of people in this process who said, "Yep, I'm organized. I have a list of passwords. I have a will. I have a health directive. I have, the keys are organized. Everything's organized." And then we get to the point of, well, does anyone know about it? And then we
Right.
usually get the response of like, well, I think my spouse does.
Right. It's all right here. Yeah.
And okay, so maybe your spouse knows. And it's a 50-50. So some people say yes, and some people are like, oh, well, it's organized, but no one knows it's organized, which I appreciate you took the time, but
Right.
who's going to find it? And sometimes, the reality is, even with our spouse, what if we're with our spouse, right? What if we're stuck we go on vacation and we're stuck somewhere and our cell phone's dying,
Hmm.
right? Things that aren't even necessarily as drastic as dying, if someone is house sitting and you're on vacation, you can't reach them, and, there's a snowstorm or whatever, and you need to move a car in the driveway and they don't know where the spare car keys are. Something that should be a 30-second fix of, okay, just take the keys, move the car, clear the snow, on you go with your day, becomes this, now I have to scour through the house trying to find spare keys in hopes that they exist. And again, it's that struggle of, we all feel that we're prepared, but rarely are we truly prepared with what we need or know what we need when we need it. And we don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
I also work as a consultant, and I've spoken to physicians who will ask, patients in their 90s, what are you, do you need anything? And they're like, no, it'll be okay.
Right.
Like, well,
It might not.
You're being admitted to the ICU in your mid-90s. Like, maybe you should get organized, right? But we don't want to admit that.
Right.
And I think realizing, even especially now, right, like what you went through, there's that age where, we're old enough that we have enough stuff to organize and protect.
Yeah.
And our parents are aging. So it's that balance of, it's going to fall on us if something happens to our parents. So we want that organization. Right. But also, things could happen to us and we want to protect, our loved ones. So it's really that balance of, where are we and what we have and what we want to protect. And we try to make it less painful than a will or life insurance, or, that big process of, okay, this is going to be hours of work. We want it to be light, fun, and we've tried to design it to allow for that.
Right. No, yeah, as I kind of, I watch the video and see it laid out, going through it and seeing what you offer. That's it. I mean, it's definitely like, I put a more kind of aggressive get views kind of cover on the, the beginning of the episode. And it's, something traumatic and urgent. Whereas the way you have it laid out is very light and fun and easy. But I got to say, if I'm bringing it to the wife and saying, hey, let's sit down and do this, that's what I want. Is light, fun, and easy. Something that people are going to, hey, all right, I can get through this. This isn't as traumatic as, you know, I
Right.
definitely can appreciate, the approach you took, and I think that's the right thing,
Yeah,
so
we
yeah,
try
that's
to
fair.
avoid the
Yeah,
legal talk, like you go do a will or life insurance and there's a lot of paperwork and forms to sign and it just becomes very, you get defensive just seeing the paper.
right, right.
And here we want it to be light. We want, you go to the dentist and you have to wait 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, type away.
Yeah,
You're waiting for something, type away. And really wanted to keep it light. So it's not okay, I need to sit down now for 3 hours. And the
yeah.
reality is, a lot of us don't have 3 hours to sit down and think through something we don't want to think through.
Right, right, and
So,
uncomfortable, and also, I mean, in a way, I mean, you do have to dig up some, "Hey, I have to go get my, bank account numbers or your passwords." I mean, there's certain realities that can't be avoided, but
yes, no, right? So, this is a part of
okay,
what we wanted to build here is we're not even after your bank account numbers, right?
okay,
Because if something were to happen to you, even if I have your bank account numbers, I can't do anything with them.
mhm,
Right. I'll go to the bank and they'll say, no, you still need, you know, probate court to assign you as an executor. And there's this whole process. But if I at least know which credit card is your main credit card,
mhm,
I can make sure that gets paid. I can use that to find out what subscriptions you have, right? If I need to cancel your
mhm,
Amazon, Netflix, all that stuff. So little pieces of information can actually open up a lot of doors for me. So, and even from a security standpoint, we're not putting stuff on there that's,
mhm,
bank account numbers. We're just saying, hey, I bank at Bank of America. This is my main credit card. Great. At
mhm,
least now I know when when I go through, either probate or get assigned, I at least know I need to go to Bank of America and sort this out
right,
instead of checking your mail to see, the American
right, what
Express, Bank
bills
of
are
America, and
coming
all
in,
the other
right,
commercials you get to
right,
figure out which is actually useful.
right,
And there's also, a lot of people have, an old account from when they were kids in their hometown that sits somewhere with $200 for the last 20 years and they forgot about it.
right,
A nice, but someone should know that it's there.
mhm,
Um, Same goes for, passwords, right? Like key passwords that we're saying, why, don't give me your password.
mhm,
Give me a hint.
right,
That might mean, if your wife or your in-laws or your parent, anyone that knows you well, that would mean something to them. But if you told me, hey, it's my firstborn's initials and the year we got married,
mhm,
that means nothing to me. But, anyone that knows you well knows when you got married and they know, your firstborn, for example, right? So little things like that help us keep this much, and it's all the information is encrypted. Everything is, you have to log in and everything's secure. And we're taking the extra level of even saying we don't even need the super sensitive information,
right, right, just where
but
to
tell me that
find
you
it,
have a list of passwords in your nightstand,
right,
right? Tell me the spare keys are, in the drawer by the fridge. You
mhm,
know, here's my lawyer's name, right? I can Google your lawyer's name and find your will,
mhm,
but I need to know there's a will. Otherwise,
right,
I'm chasing ghosts. So
yeah,
really, this is about how can we simply, and I would argue that 80% of this you can probably sit down right now and type out
okay,
without having to look anything up. And we wanted to keep it very light, because we think that that 80% would actually make hours of difference for someone else,
mhm,
right? And
definitely,
I'll be completely honest with you. In my case, it was the car title,
mhm,
where we needed the car title so we could register it and couldn't find it. And my dad is a typical, a stack of papers on his desk, and it was somewhere in there. But we searched for hours in every file cabinet and every, and he had passwords written out, he had things. But something as simple as a car title that he could have told you, he could have gone over and just pulled it out of the stack. Took us, a long time to find. And it wasn't fun digging through all his stuff trying to find it. But again, if I asked you right now, like, where are your spare car keys? You could probably
Right.
rattle off where they are.
Right.
If you're, under duress, when someone's trying to find something quickly, it's a bit harder to do.
Yep. No, that's fair. So what type of things are covered? Like kind of what topics, like what are people kind of worried about? What are the things that come up? You said like car titles and like you said, maybe what credit cards you mentioned.
Right.
Like,
So we try and break it up by topic, right? So
okay.
we look at, financials, right? Your credit cards, your bank information, not bank information, but where you bank. Then we look at, investments, for example. Do you have investment accounts? Where are they? Stuff like home stuff. Do you own? Do you rent? If so, where's your mortgage? Or who is your landlord? Is there a spare key hidden somewhere? Right? Little things like that help us. I talk to a lot of people who, for example, rent their place, and I say, well, if something happened to you and I need to get in, who do I even like? Does anyone know who your landlord is to call them and say, hey, this happened, I need to be let in? Then we get into like kids or loved ones, right? Whether it's kids, pets, for example, primary care for the kids. And I've talked to a lot of people who, if they split the roles, sort of like who does what, they know there's a primary care. They might know the name, but they don't know what clinic, or they don't, who is their homeroom teacher. If I need to call them and pull the kids out of school, who's their homeroom teacher? Other important, documents and like, call it sentimental value items.
All right.
What's in your house that we need to know about? Is there you might have a baseball that means something to you that I'll see a baseball and not know what it is, right? Like,
right.
Hey, that's a Babe Ruth signed baseball. Don't throw it out, right? Things like that we say, even as simple as a safe, right? Do you have a safe? It's not something that we normally share with people,
right?
But even if you don't give me the combination, like at least tell me that there is a safe, right? Like, hey, there's a will and kids' birth certificates and all that. It's in the safe, left side of the closet, bottom corner. Great. Like I might have to find a locksmith to get me in, but at least I know.
That's where I want to be. Right.
Right. So where otherwise I might be searching through every drawer in your house for no reason. The documents are in a safe that I just need to get access to.
Right.
Then we also leave room for, added information, right? Like what else should we know? What else do you want to tell someone that we haven't covered, right? So it's broken up into different sections with the thought of walking through a certain logic, but you don't have to answer everything, right? So it's very much, we wanted to keep it light. So if you say, you know what, I'm not worried about banking information. Okay, move on. Car, again, whether it's properties, cars, anything that you have or you want someone to know, right? Simple question, like, do you have a health directive? Which again is something that no one wants to talk about.
Right.
But I will tell you, it's something everyone should have that conversation. Again, I remember when we lost my dad, it was quick. And my mom and I talked about it after, and she said it was still the hardest decision she ever had to make in terms of like comfort measures. And it was never a decision. Like it was something that he was still able to say, answer questions and say what he wanted. And they had always talked about, what do we do in this scenario? Like, what do what do we want done? And they've been very clear about it with us as kids. They've been very clear about it with each other. They always knew what they were going to, like, what the other wanted.
Hmm.
And even knowing all of that, she said it was still the worst decision she ever had to, like.
Yeah, well,
And that's, and again, right, it's not a decision, but it's, so it made me think through, what if someone doesn't know, right? What if we don't know? We haven't had that specific conversation, and now we have to make that decision,
right.
right? There's no good outcome, because whatever we
Right.
decide,
You're
we're
always
going to
second
question.
guessing. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And that's a burden that, that's a big burden to put on someone.
Yeah.
So having those conversations, or if you have even a document that outlines it, from, a lot, it's time sensitive. So for someone to be able to quickly know where it is, or know, if you wanted to write sort of your expectation, great. At least I have somewhere to start. And I'm not trying to guess, well, I wonder what Chuck would want me to do in this situation.
Right.
Because at that point, I will second guess it for the rest of my life regardless.
Right. Because
Uh,
you never know for sure, what was right. And obviously, with things like that, nobody knows absolutes and whatever. There's always that little bit of doubt of, oh, well, now whatever.
yeah, and I think it's important because, again, none of us want to talk about this, but at the same time, we're going to have to deal with these things, and having a little bit of a head start makes all the difference, right? I'm not going to say that, Matan's life map will take away grieving. I'm not going to say that it will make, challenging situations fun, but having been in those scenarios, an hour of grieving feels like days.
Yeah.
And when you're searching for stuff, it's, as you recently learned, right? Like, trying to
Right.
find stuff when you're grieving isn't the same as, hey, I can't find my keys today.
Well, and another thing that I've seen with this is that, and it's funny, one of my coworkers is going through this right now, and he's got elderly parents that have, severe Alzheimer's and that kind of thing, where it's, you're basically, facing these realities, and what's coming, and you're trying to prepare and get things, ready while you can. And you have 3 or 4 siblings, and, you get, "Oh, well, I'm gonna handle it." And then, the sibling that we chose was, "Well, I'm too emotional and stressed when I deal with it, so I
Mhm.
can't." Like, I start, and I chose to be in charge, but now it's too emotional and I can't look at it. And now I'll wait a month, and now I can look at it. And now, I looked at it again, and it's too stressful, and now I can't find anything. And
Right.
it drags out and becomes traumatic for everybody involved. And like you said, you're already grieving. It's already a tough process. And then, how many families get into squabbles and stuff over, that's what I was talking about with my coworker. And he's, I have sisters and brothers, and, well, I'm entitled to this and that. Whereas if you're making these decisions, I mean, again, that's, kind of more a will, but if people have access to all the right stuff, they can sort it out and kind of, deal with
Exactly.
it.
Exactly. And the tough thing for me and for us is, ever since we've, taken the cover off this thing,
Yeah.
I keep hearing from people, like, oh, we would have loved to have this. This would have been so helpful. And, our challenge now is, how do we get people to be a step ahead rather than, oh, shoot, I wish we had this.
Hmm.
And that's the, and it's tough, right? I hear from people all the time who say, I lost a parent, or, I've seen friends go through this, and I wish we had something like this. I wish, someone would have taken the time and done it. And that's the uphill challenge now of getting it to people to think through, I don't want to die, right? But, should I go outside and get hit by a van? I would rather my family be in a better place, or at least if I could save some, some grieving, if I could save some of the hurt for them, I
Mhm.
probably should.
Right.
Right? When we think about it, again, to our point early on, we do so much to get them situated, and we do so much for our families and our friends and our kids and whoever it is. It's how do we keep them safe, right? How do we make sure that they're having a good day? And we do so much that when you think of it in the big picture, what's 45 minutes?
Right.
But we still, and I think that's what we're trying to get ahead of now is take the 45 minutes, because 45 minutes to you now is going to make a huge difference for someone later. And yeah, you may not be there to see it, but at the same time, we all, try and leave things better than we found them. And we're not going to be there to see that either. So, like, it becomes very, very much I think, a worthy effort. And I hope more people will get ahead of it than, I just get, I feel their pain when they say, oh, I wish we had this. Because now, being a member of a certain club that, none of us want to be members of becomes this, how do we make it easier moving forward? And again, it doesn't have to be tragic. You might be at work stuck with no service or whatever, and someone needs this, someone that you trust needs to know where your keys are. Okay,
Yeah.
check this.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, that's like some of the things, and again, it's something you mentioned, I guess, is, like, hey, who are the utility providers? Who are where do I, who is your power company? Who's the water company or whatever, who do you call for that? And people don't know, and like you said, you're out of town, and that's you know, a big problem.
exactly, and again, it's will people figure it out? Sure, right? I'm sure you could show up in my house and figure out how to order heating oil,
Right.
but the amount of even thought and stress you have to think through versus if I just said, hey, I use these guys, just then you can Google a specific company who already knows where the oil fill is and
Right.
everything's already situated. Now what could have taken you 30 minutes took you 3.
Right.
And again, it's not the time as much as it is the stress of, oh no, I hope I don't mess this up.
Right.
And people mean well. I truly do think people mean well and they want to help. This helps make sure that they help in the way we want them to, in a way, and that they
Fair.
know where to start versus, okay, well, I'll sit here and wait for the mail to see where Chuck banks, but
Right.
you
Right.
know there's probably mail that you don't want me to see, or maybe you went paperless and I'm going to check the mail for a while not even knowing that
Not
you have
fine.
paperless
Yeah.
billing, and I'm searching for something that isn't coming.
Right.
So things like that we can laugh at and joke about, but at the same time they're real. They do become real headaches.
Yeah.
As I adore my dog, for example, and someone should know if something happens to me who her vet is,
Mhm.
right? Like, I still want her to be able to go to the vet, but or if she's on certain medications, someone should probably know that she gets her heartworm every month and it's on the counter, right?
Mhm.
Super simple, but not really something. I don't call my mother and say, hey, my dog gets heartworm
Yeah.
medication once a month.
Right.
If something
Or
happens
we
to me, I need
changed
you to make sure.
we changed the dog's medication,
Right.
please. Yeah. Yeah.
So stuff that's as simple as that, but we don't necessarily talk about, can fall through the cracks and cause stress, right? And those are the things we again want to make sure people keep an eye on. Uh, the financials are generally the first thing people think about. And if I say, does anyone know where your stuff is? Yep. Okay. Do they know just where your money is? Like, is there anything, that's elsewhere? Is there anything, you know, in the house, like what else should they know about? And then you get the, oh, maybe not,
Right.
right? And that's when we're like, okay. So take the 45 minutes, fill, or even take 10 minutes at a time. Right. Like I said,
Right.
we all find ourselves, messing with our phones or online, just mindless for more than 10 minutes a day. So, in 3 days we can have this done.
Well, that was, I mean, it used to be my parents were, in another state for a long time, and I'd go out to visit and my dad would be like, "Oh, I have this, I have a gun stashed over here, or I have,
Right.
a stack of silver stacked over here, and I have a hidden key over there." And even that, I leave and 6 months later, I'm like, I don't know where any of that, or, I might
Well, right.
remember half of it. And, I mean, he was on top. At least he was like saying, "Hey, these things are important. Don't throw this out because I, put this here," and, that kind of thing. And he actually was the first person I saw who kind of did this. And he was like, "Look, I have a binder and it's got all my passwords, my,
Mm.
my life insurance, my stuff is all here. And these are the companies I have credit cards with. And these are, it was all laid out." And I don't know if like, he always seems to live in these like planned neighborhoods or something. And I don't know if they had a class for, for people or whatever, but somehow he came across this. Maybe it was something from his church or whatever. I
Yeah.
doubt he came up with it on his own, but he definitely handled and laid out, kind of
And I think,
everything.
and that's wonderful, right? The two issues with it are, one, that it's labor intensive, right? Writing it down takes time.
Yes,
Sharing it becomes challenging because there's one
very
physical copy,
right.
which is a barrier. And then changing it, right? So if he
Yeah,
moved the key from here to here, he has to rewrite it, update the binder.
right. Or it's scribbled
Where
out everywhere and right, like
right,
you're saying.
where
Yeah,
we're trying to do the same idea, but in a digital form, where so at least you know where the binder is. If something needs to be adjusted, it'll adjust across whoever it's shared with, and it's a bit more fluid, but with the same idea of, you know, at least even knowing there's a binder, right?
is
So,
something. Right.
and because I think the binder is great, but if you're searching for things and you find the binder, you know, after a few days,
Yeah.
you might read it and be like, "Oh, this has been great,"
Helpful
on
3
Tuesday,
days ago.
but
Yeah.
I didn't know this existed,
Right.
right? And again, we move stuff, and even your point about, right, whether it's gold or guns or whatever it is, a lot of people have them in their homes, and we probably should know about it, right? Especially
Mhm.
when you talk about things like gold and guns, you you know, you don't want the movers when we're trying to clean stuff out to be like, "Oh, what's this?"
Right.
Right? Like there's certain things that you want to probably get to
Beforehand.
before it becomes a,
Right. Hey,
people
come
come
clean
over
out
and
my
they're
house and yeah.
right. And I think that's, and it can be that, it can be certain memorabilia, right? He may have had, you know, jewelry or things like that that you want to know, for example, where's the jewelry, right? And
Mhm.
it's not about the value as much as it is sentimental for the family.
Mhm.
So knowing that, okay, there's a drawer over here with all the jewelry stuff. Great. I know I need to pack that up before, just to put it somewhere safe.
Yeah.
Um, if there's a gun somewhere, knowing that, okay, I probably shouldn't leave it unattended, right? Do whatever we think is appropriate, right? Same
Right.
with gold, same with any of that stuff. But it's easier to find when you know it's there than kind of
Yeah.
going through and wondering, like, oh, I wonder what this
Surprise. Right.
is, right? Um, and again, it's such a, you know, it can be done in a very efficient way,
Mhm.
and I think that's what scares people is they know they should have a binder, and they know that they should be prepared, but they don't want to take the time and
Yeah.
create a binder and find a binder, take the time to write stuff in it, and then edit it over time. And that's where we really wanted to create something that's much more simple
Mhm.
and really marries the two worlds of
Yeah,
as much detail as you want to put in, but also if you just want to tell me that there's a binder and then tell me where it is, great.
that's something, right?
That will save me. Right. And that's the thing is it doesn't, we're trying to get away from the all or nothing approach of, either you tell me everything or it's useless.
Right,
No, I actually think it's anything that you tell me is a step ahead of where I was,
right,
especially when we get into, again, right, like we talked about the emotional response people have. We don't know what that's going to be. So
right,
whatever, breadcrumbs we can leave for them, the more, prepared they'll be and the more, I guess, that we're giving them a little bit of help in a time that's otherwise, a struggle, or at least giving them a map to process through the logistical side.
right. All right. So yeah, how do we work it out? Where do we find it?
So what we did, so matanslifemap.com, so it's MATANS lifemap.com. We'll give you a lot more information. There's informational videos, and then you can click on, sign up and start. The cool thing we did is, and then obviously you pay and you start, and you can download an icon to your phone, so it will look and feel like a regular app.
Mhm.
Or you can do it on your browser, whatever, pick your poison sort of moment. The fun thing is, so while the creator pays, we don't charge for viewing,
Mhm.
right? So if I create my map and I share it with you, you just need to create an account and you can view mine, but you only pay when you create your own. So
Mhm.
um, we want to get this to as many people as we can because again, we think this is important stuff, and you and I can joke about it and we try and keep it light, but at the end of the day, I think it's very important. So,
Mhm.
matanslifemap.com, and then, click on the sign up and start link, um, and it will take you through the registration process, and then you can get started.
Nice. No, I like it. So yeah, no, I'll put a link in the show notes and a link with the podcast, and
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
that's
Um,
awesome. No, I appreciate it.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
again, we hope everyone does it. And as you know, right, we find out how important it is when it's too late. So hopefully we start seeing the, you know, helping people get ahead of the curve rather than um, chasing a solution when it's too late.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I mean, that's it. It's just really about being prepared and letting others know, what they can find and just really taking care of other people. I mean, that's the whole,
Right.
prepper thing and what we're always kind of preaching. And, this is something that's inevitable, that's going to happen. And how awesome is it if you can make it easy for everybody, make it a little less painful,
Exactly.
because like I said, it's something they don't have to face or that's uncomfortable. They don't have to deal with searching through things that are unintentional. So, no,
Yeah,
that's
and we
great.
even left, at the end, a little room for if you want to leave them a little,
Nice.
thank you note of appreciation or things like that where, yeah, we do so much for people. Why not, do a
Right.
little more for something that
Right.
could really make a huge difference.
And that's it. It's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to do a will. Nobody wants to think about these things or plan for it. But really, take care of the people that you care about. And
Yeah, and I joke with people,
yeah,
it's one of those we don't want to do, right? Like, and I think it's a mindset, right? We don't want to put our seatbelts on either. But
right.
there's enough car accidents where we're like, well, I guess we'll take our chance,
Guess
it
we'll
could
do it. Yeah.
happen. So let's just, take our chances. So it's one of those things that I think is we know it's going to happen sooner or later, so let's just be prepared for it and do whatever we can to protect those we care about.
And that's the thing. If it's something you have to do once, maybe you update it from time to time, but something you have to do once, you may as well do it, on the early side and be prepared because it buys you that much more coverage, right? If I do this
Exactly.
when I'm 25, then, that's coverage for the next 50 years or whatever. Whereas
Right.
if I wait until I'm 70, well, yeah, I mean, there's only a little chance that, a short window of when this is going to happen, right? So
Exactly.
I don't know. You're getting more value for your money. How about that? If you do it early on
Exactly.
and take advantage.
And I
But
will say, we wanted to very much do a one-time payment.
Mhm.
So we don't want people to feel like we're trying to, get you to pay year over year. So over the next 50 years, you end up paying a bunch. It's you pay once and then you're done. So at that point, there's really no, you may as well do it when you're 25, or you don't have to
Right.
feel like I have to save my, save my money to time it just right.
Yeah, no, that's right. So, no, that's awesome. So, no, I appreciate talking to you. You guys have concerns, questions, you can email me at preppingbadass@gmail.com. I'm sure there's a way to contact you on Matan's
Yep,
Life
there's a
Map.
contact us. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out right from the website, and we'll get back to you within 24 hours.
And with that, I'd say stay safe and we will talk to you guys next week.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Chuck.